Hi everyone, it's Wednesday Warriors and it's me, Arielle. First thing I want to do is apologize for not giving you a Wednesday Warrior video last week. I was so incredibly ill for about 7 or 8 days and there was just no way last week at any point that I could record a video for you that would be up to par and that I would be able to do and still take care of myself. So I was not able to make a video last week, but I hope this week will make up for it. This week's topic is misconceptions and stereotypes of eating disorders and people with eating disorders. Some of those misconceptions that I'm sure you've heard are that eating disorder sufferers bring it upon themselves, or that they are ungrateful for all of the things that they do have, or that they're selfish. I think primarily the main one I have heard a lot is that people with eating disorders are selfish. And I think that encompasses a lot of things for people. Selfish because they maybe eat and throw up what they've eaten, and people start to think about people in other countries that don't have enough to eat, people within our own countries that don't have enough to eat, and how could people go to the store and buy so much food and binge on it and then just waste it essentially by throwing it up. And I think the very physical manifestation of selfishness takes root in behaviors like that. And certainly I think a lot of people find eating disorder sufferers selfish because of what they put their families through or what they put their friends and loved ones through. And if people really took a minute to not only walk in the shoes of someone who has an eating disorder or who is in recovery from an eating disorder, but who actually knew someone that had an eating disorder, most people would be able to tell that people with eating disorders, besides just being regular people, they feel bad enough typically about what's going on with them, what they're putting their loved ones through. They feel bad enough about the food they might be wasting or the food they might be putting off and not eating. They feel bad about these things, and those are the sort of guilted things that fuel the eating disorder itself. Those are the kind of things that keep people from getting better because they can't get over the guilt of what they're doing to themselves, what they're doing to other people. They would love to believe that they're more intelligent than that they have more logic. And one of the facts about people with eating disorders is that they're very intelligent people. Eating disorders are a mental illness, and I've said this a number of times in a variety of different videos. An eating disorder is a mental illness. It's not something that someone chooses. You don't wake up one morning and say, I want to be bulimic, or I want to be anorexic, or I want to have eating disorder tendencies, or I want to have binge eating disorder. People just don't do that. It's not a choice. There may be some misguided individuals out there who think that an eating disorder will be the answer to their problems, who see someone drop a lot of weight with anorexia, for example, and would love to take on that lifestyle. But they're misguided individuals, and a true eating disorder is not a choice. If someone falls into the trap of an eating disorder, they have some kind of a mental illness, a mental disorder. Now, that's not to say that choices are not involved. There are many choices that are involved in eating disorders and in eating disorders recovery, and people have to take responsibility for their actions. Just like with anything, we may be dealt certain cards biologically or with a predisposition or with environmental factors and social factors from our family life or certain dynamics of our environment, and we develop an eating disorder. That's not a choice, but once you have an eating disorder, or once you have decided to recover from an eating disorder, you have made a choice, or you will be constantly making choices. There are things that you can choose in order to get better, in order to get worse, in order to stay on the path that you're on, or in order to change course. So yes, there are things that are within your control. And just as there are things that are within your control, there are things that aren't. And I think the things that aren't are the things that people without eating disorders find the most difficult to understand. I did a video not very long ago, just a couple of months ago, called Family and Eating Disorders, and it was a video that I made to try to explain eating disorders and recovery from an eating disorder to people's family members who are having a difficult time grasping what recovery is about, grasping what is within a person's control and what is not within a person's control. And a lot of the time to family members, especially for someone who's been struggling with eating disorder for a very long time, a lot of the time for family members, they can see the person as not trying or not trying hard enough. And sometimes that's the case, but a lot of the time it's just that they don't know what they're seeing. They don't know what this person is experiencing. They don't understand the true mental disorder of it, and they don't get that recovery is a process that can take a long, long time. So I would like to direct you to that video that I made very recently about family and eating disorders, because I think in a nutshell it goes in depth and it talks about putting yourself in the shoes of someone who has an eating disorder or who is in recovery from an eating disorder. And that's important with anything. I think it's important for someone who is struggling with an eating disorder to put themselves in the shoes of their family member or of their loved one who is watching them every day harm themselves, essentially, or try to recover from something that's very destructive. That is a very hard role to be in as well. So it's really good to see both sides of the situation, both sides of the picture, and you'll prevent a lot of stereotypes both ways. A lot of people who know someone with an eating disorder, they get characterized as not being understanding or having it out for the person, or being too tired to deal with that person anymore, being selfish a lot of the time because they want to live their own life and not have to worry about this person. So stereotypes go both ways, and as soon as you can recognize that stereotypes go both ways and that sometimes we stereotype people without meaning to, you can learn from it and you can grow and you can get rid of those stereotypes. Something I want to talk about in regards to the stereotype of eating disordered individuals bringing it upon themselves is that it's very easy to understand where people are coming from who say things like that when you're not within your eating disorder anymore. So let me explain that a little bit more. When I was struggling with my eating disorder, which was anorexia, and if someone had said to me that I was ungrateful or that I had brought it upon myself, I would have been hurt and I would have been offended, and I really would have been angry about that. It would have made me mad. I think now, several years removed from the eating disorder, considering myself fully recovered for quite some time, I can see when someone says that about maybe the girl that I used to be, or about someone else that has an eating disorder, I can see where they're coming from. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why they might say that with less judgment and without being so offended. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a difference between being upset and angered that someone has stereotyped someone with an eating disorder in such a way, and internalizing that anger and being very defensive about it and almost using it to fuel the disorder or to mask some other feelings that you might be feeling. And it's very easy to be non-judgmental and calm and peaceful and see both sides of every story when you're healthy and well and removed from your eating disorder. So I just sort of put that out there to let you know that there's so many stereotypes out there, and people make snap judgments all the time about people with eating disorders, about all kinds of other people dealing with other things, struggling with other things, and it's very sad and it's very unfortunate, and we can change those stereotypes, and I hope that we will, and I certainly strive to do so. But as soon as you're able to let go of those immediate defensive feelings and actions that you have when someone says something maybe directed at you particularly, you'll be much better able to combat what they're saying and explain it or re-explain it, or walk away if it's not something that even needs an explanation. And it will really be to your benefit. People with eating disorders aren't ugly people. They're not people who are selfish or ungrateful or who bring things upon themselves. They are people that have a problem. And they're people just like anyone else out there that has a problem. Maybe your problem is an eating disorder. Someone else's problem might be an abusive partner. Someone else's problem might be bipolar disorder. Someone else's problem might be extreme anxiety. Someone else's problem might be parents that don't understand, or being unemployed, or feeling like they have no support system. They're completely alone. They have no friends. Someone who keeps getting into bad relationships. There are so many problems out there, and no problem is insignificant because it fits in that person's life and it causes them harm in some way, in some shape or form. And if you can recognize that everyone's dealing with something, you're usually better able to deal with the things that people might throw at you. I think one of the main ways that we can strike those wrong stereotypes about people with eating disorders from the record is to talk. You have to talk about it. You have to talk about eating disorders. They can't be something that we shy away from. They can't be something that we consider shameful. We can't hide them away in a closet. We have to talk about them. And as soon as we let people know that they're not something to be ashamed of and that people with eating disorders are real people with a problem, we'll change things. I try to be a face of eating disorder recovery. I love to say that I'm a recovered individual, and I mean it wholeheartedly, and it's a fact. And I'm not afraid to say that I had an eating disorder and that I have an eating disorder history. In my past, I was anorexic. And while being anorexic was not who I was or who I am, it was a part of me, and I grew from it and I recovered, and I consider it a great feat that I was able to do so, and I try to share some things that helped me so that I can help other people. But I like to talk about eating disorders in a way that makes people feel like it's okay and they're not horrible, ungrateful, selfish people. And anyone who thinks they are, I hear where you're coming from. But maybe there's a different way of looking at it. Maybe there are some things you don't know. So part of that is then education. Hope you're all having a wonderful week out there, and I will see you next time.